I can't come into that house. Why? There's a picture. Right?
Yeah, it's an image.
It's an image.
Yeah.
There are folks on websites that they don't want to put up images and pictures. That's fine. That's personal conviction. Okay? Yahweh says, I show Moshe my picture. But no man can see the Father and live.
Yeah.
So what picture do you think Moshe saw?
Guess what?
He says, here's my picture. You like the way I look? You like the way I look?
Right.
So Yahshua, Hebrews 1:1, 1:2, 1:3, is the exact image or a representation of his substance. So what's another way to say it? He's my photo. Moshe, you're going to see an exact replica of the Father. You're not going to see the Father, because no man can see the Father and live. You're going to see my picture. You like my picture? See, Yeshua brags on his children, just like you and me. We got a pocketbook, we got a wallet, we take out our pictures. Look, my son, look, my daughter, look. This is when they graduated college. Look, this is when they had their first pepperoni pizza before I slapped that paganism out of him. Look at this. So what's happening here, Edna? Edna, what's happening here?
Yeah.
Edna, what's happening here? Yahweh is showing Moshe his picture. The Hebrew word is temunah, image, picture. Why? Because he was the meekest man. How did he get to be the meekest man? He actually saw all men created equal before Abraham Lincoln. You want Emancipation Proclamation? Read Bamidbar 12.
Come on.
And you'll have Emancipation Proclamation.
No.
Well, I don't want to get into that Jewish stuff. I know, because you like your white church only and your black church only and your segregated pews and everything separate, and you teach about the worldwide gospel and the worldwide calling, and you keep walking in segregation, but you're preaching and you're living and you're talking about desegregation. And Yahweh says the most you're going to get are the crumbs. Some dreams, some visions, because you're a child of Yahweh. But to become the meekest man is to see all men truly created equal.
Right.
Is this difficult?
Yeah. He comes out of the cloud.
That's right. So if you're faithful when it comes to certain races in Israel, certain pigmentations in Israel, how about getting faithful in all the Bayat? If you say no to a white man, or you say no to an Asian, or you should be able to say no to a black man. My mama told me that. I was brought up right. Baruch Hashem Yahweh.
Right.
My servant Moshe is not so. He is faithful with all my children in my bayit. How do I become meek? Start there. Now, Moshe is special because he saw the Sephirah of Yahweh as opposed to a simple dream or vision. Listen, lack of bigotry is a sign of meekness, listen, that positions a believer to receive the manifestations or the Sephirot of Yahweh. Tov?
Yes.
I don't speak to him in dark speeches. So since I'm speaking to him in my temunah or my image, mouth to mouth, why were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moshe?
Come on.
Boy, I'd like to ask that question to a lot of folks. Oh boy, I can do a remez and a drosh and a hangover on that one.
Yeah.
I would love to get on the phone.
So why aren't you afraid?
Why weren't you afraid? Boy, I'd love to grab the scripture and run with it.
Yeah.
But it's not mine, it's everybody. Why then were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moshe? See, people don't understand that. They don't understand that. It is not about leadership being perfect. It's not about leadership doing the right thing. It's about your attitude toward leadership. Yahweh wants to see how you're going to react to leadership when it's bad, and when it's wrong, and when it's misguided, and when it tries you, and when it tests you, and when it pushes you to the limit, and when it pushes your patience. How do you react then?
Yes.
Do you speak against Moshe? Or do you say no? Do you say, I will not touch Yahweh's anointed? If Yahweh wants to spank Moshe or Leroy or Bob or George, he knows how to correct them. Because vengeance is mine, saith Yahweh. Pardon me, I'll do the repaying.
Yeah, chances are.
If someone was mistreated, if someone was mishandled, excuse me, I'll do the repaying. You just keep being faithful in the bayit to everybody in the bayit that's still in the bayit.
Yes.
So leadership is not about being perfect. It's about walking the straight and narrow path. And being faithful is not always agreeing with leadership, but never speaking against it. It's getting hot now, huh? It's getting very hot now. Because our natural impulse is what? To speak against it. That's our natural, that's our first inclination.
Yeah, complain.
Something goes wrong. You know, somebody left 50 years ago. It had to be the elders. Yeah, but the elders weren't even born. It doesn't matter. It had to be the leadership. Yeah, but this happened 50 years ago. The elders weren't even born. Yeah, but I just know. I know. It had to be. She would never, ever speak against Tehillah. Her Bible is so big that she needs a tow truck just to bring it to shul. And she's got Yeshua's words in red letters. I know that woman. I've known her for years. She would never do anything against the elder. That's the way the enemy works. Oh, I love that scripture too much. I better move on. Verse 9. And the anger of Yahweh was kindled against them.
Oh, man.
And he departed. In other words, okay. Yahweh said, you three show up, but you two come here. Get in the cloud. The anger of Yahweh was kindled against them. And then what? He left.
It was a good thing.
Where was the trial? Didn't exist. Where was the tribunal? Didn't exist. Where were the accusers? Didn't exist. Where were the witnesses? When Yahweh sees bigotry in the camp, trust me, there's not going to be a trial. He's going to purge it. And if you and I are the one carrying bigotry, we're going to get purged.
Yeah.
Man may not know it's there. You may not even know it's there because it could be embedded so deeply from childhood. But Yahweh will purge it. He'll call you to the tabernacle. He'll come down to your level, expose your heart, and deal with you. And then as soon as he's finished dealing with you, he'll leave. There is no discussion. There is no midrash. There is nothing. It's just his rebuke, his visitation, his judgment, and now you've got a choice. You become meek like Moshe, or you stay in bigotry. Yahweh's not going to let you stay in bigotry. You cannot stay in bigotry and flourish. Well, you don't understand, Rabbi. When I was a little boy, the Jews, yeah. They took the tires off my car, and they sold it, and bought a house with the proceeds of the hubcaps. I don't like those Jews, because they took my hubcaps when I was 2 years old. Don't you know all Jews are rich? How can you love the Jews when they're all rich? I used to have a black brother drive me to school because my father wanted me to go to yeshiva, Hebrew school. So he had this gentleman who was my driver and drove me to school. And oh boy, you talk about hatred? About hatred? I just sit in the back, I was like, little Moshe, leave me alone, I want to eat my yodels and go to school. And he's like, well, you may not be, I can't even remember half the conversation. You may not be rich, but somewhere in that family there's money. Really? Yeah. I know those Jews. You may not have it. Rivka may not have it. Your daddy may not. But somewhere in that family, there's money.
Wonder where they keep those hubcaps.
Yahweh goes, you, come to the door. Come to the door. You got to be faithful in all the house. In all the house. Even to the Jews you believe stole your hubcap. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. And Yahweh said what he had to say, and he departed. Ain't that interesting? All the other times he appeared to Miriam and to Aharon was through how? By his own testimony. Was through how? Dreams, parables, dark sayings, meaning somewhat veiled sayings. Now all of a sudden, they're hearing directly from Yahweh. This is interesting, isn't it? For the first time, hello? For the first time, they're hearing directly from Yahweh. I find this very interesting.
Yes, very interesting. Why weren't you afraid?
You can get away with racial prejudice for 10 years, 15 years, but those who live by the sword will die by the sword. That hatred will eat you and will consume you from within to the point where you can no longer function as a human being, or especially in the kingdom. It's got to be repented of, it's got to be confessed, and it's got to be forsaken. Who wants Yahweh to speak to us just in dreams and visions? When we can speak, He'll speak directly to us, and He will turn us into a meek man or woman. What does meekness mean? Being humble and being low-spoken and walking humbly with your shoulders down to your ankles. No. That's the world's definition of meekness. Biblical meekness, you could shout, scream, and be a loudmouth. Are you still teachable? Can you learn? Or do you have a bigger anointing than the leadership? You can win more souls than Billy Graham. You just have a bigger. It's just you never had the right opportunity. Those white folks have been holding you back. The Jews have been holding you back. The Greeks. But if you just, brother, you got to stop. Don't you know those Greeks? Don't you know, man? Got to stay out of those Greek diners. Don't you know every Greek has a diner? There's no such thing as a Greek family without a diner.
And they're all named Nick.
Really? How come I'm broke? Where's my diner? All right. Yeah, really. In fact, Greek wedding. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. All right. Let me read you this from the Restoration Scripture. First, note how Yahweh defends His true leaders. If you speak evil and of a truly called leader, not perfect, but leader, you're doomed. Even if you're right and the leader's wrong, you're doomed. You are completely doomed. Watch this. Also note that the reason Moshe's relationship was above that of the other Israelite leaders was due to the fact, listen, that he saw Yahweh's form, Yeshua, Sephirah, and since the Father has no form, we know of a certainty that he saw Yeshua, Son of Yahweh, who remains the manifest form of Yahweh. Amen?
Come on.
Verse 9. And the anger of Yahweh was kindled against him, and he departed. Verse 10. And the cloud departed from off the tabernacle, and see, Miriam became leprous, white as sheleg, white as snow. And Aharon looked upon Miriam, and see, she was leprous. They were both punished, because Aharon could no longer function in his office as the Kohen Hagadol, because he was now preoccupied with Miriam's leprosy.
Yeah.
He visited both of them with judgment. Did he not?
Right.
Miriam became leprous. Why not Aaron? Apparently, Aaron got the message of the evil of bigotry just by looking upon Miriam. Yahweh was in essence saying, you think being, now listen carefully because you're going to like this. You think being white is a sign of being chosen? Try this on for size.
He was really white. Yeah, snow's pretty.
Now you're really going to be white. So white that Aaron is going to get scared into meekness. And I don't even have to visit judgment upon Aharon, just upon you, because he's gonna make the cockroaches in his pants just looking at you. So you think being white and the fact that Moshe's wife is a Cushite, an Ethiopian, that she's cursed, that he's in the flesh, and then you come forward and go, Yahweh speaks to us, not just to Moshe, because if Yahweh really spoke to Moshe, he wouldn't be marrying a person of another nationality, race, or whatever. Yahweh says, now is that the way you're thinking? I'm going to show you that being white isn't all that it seems to be. Try on this coat.
White as snow.
You think Miriam got the message?
Oh, yeah.
So they were learning to become meek They were learning to become faithful in all the bias. Even folks that grandma and grandma and your Irish grandparents told you weren't worthy of love, weren't worthy of forgiveness, weren't worthy of care, weren't worthy of the dignity of every human being. All that stuff that was brainwashed into you by grandma and by granddad. Yahweh says, I'll change your heart. I'll make you like Moshe. And when I make you like Moshe, you'll be as meek as Moshe. And when you're as meek as Moshe, I'll appear to you through a picture of my son. And I'll open up my wallet. You'll see me because you see my son. So there's a correlation. Turn to your neighbor and say correlation.
Correlation.
There's a correlation between lack of bigotry and a clear relationship with Yahweh. Bigotry is very, very evil. It is the sin of rebellion. And the most you get from Yahweh is a dream or a vision. But when judgment comes, even then you don't see his form because he meets you in the cloud. Where did he meet Miriam and Aaron? In a cloud.
Yeah.
That's not exactly a front seat in the orchestra.
No. Kind of can't see.
You can't see nothing. So you go into a meeting with Yahweh and you can't see nothing, but you walk out judged, and you walk out condemned. And when you try to stop the Master Yahweh from leaving the meeting, trying to explain your bigotry and your prejudice and your hatred, and you try to seize the hem of his garment, he can't turn him around. He goes, meeting's over, adios.
Yeah, he's not there.
That's how serious the sin of bigotry and racial prejudice is in Israel. What the churches do is their own business. What the world does is their own business. But if we are rebuilding the tabernacle of David that has fallen in the two houses of Israel, there is no room, there's no space, there's not an inch, there's not even a cubic inch for any of that kind of rebellion. Because Yahweh says, it's rebellion. You can't be faithful to minister to Judah and Ephraim because when I reunite the two houses, they're coming back in droves. P.S. in multiracial droves.
Amen.
Some of these folks are going to have slanted eyes.
Yes.
And Grandma told you they were like half human. And some of you black folks, you were told that the Jews own the banks, the Jews own the movie theaters, the Jews own the rent, the Jews own FP&L, so you don't want to pay the Jews, so you might as well just be out on the street. It's better than paying the Jews. At least on the street, at least you're not bending your knee to those Jews, those capitalists. This is crazy stuff. And Yahweh says, not in Israel. Not when the tabernacle comes together. Not if you want to move out in a camp as Echad.
That's right. Yes.
If you want to move out as Echad, when the cloud moves, if you want to be with the cloud, when the fire moves, pillar of fire moves by night, you want to be with the pillar, you've got to become meek like Moshe and learn to be faithful, not just to those who look like you in the house, but to be faithful to everybody in the house. Somebody. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. So Yahweh says, you think being Caucasian is a sign that you're part of the chosen people? Well, let's go to the other coin. You think being black, because we have these Yahweh Ben Yahweh groups right here in Miami. Okay, you've heard of the Yahweh Ben Yahweh. He thinks he's the son of Yahweh, and he thinks that all white folks are devils and all black folks are angels. And then, of course, they take the scripture in Jeremiah where Yahweh says, I am black. That's a metaphor, meaning I am pissed off.
Hello.
They take it literally and go, whoa, Yahweh's black. That means if Yahweh's black, the devil's white. You getting it now? Yahweh says, if that's the way you think, you're going to have to live in the world, and eventually I'm going to bring judgment, or you're going to have to live in some other religious system. But when I bring in the multitudes of Ephraim, the Melo Hagoyim, the fullness of the Gentiles that have filled every nation, they're coming back as Asiatics, they're coming back as Filipinos, they're coming back as all colors, all creeds, all nationalities. How can I send you to the Philippines and you're going to treat these people as Gentiles, not just as Gentiles, but as Gentiles that are not worthy of your love because they have a different pigmentation?
Yeah.
Amen. Preach it.
Yahweh says, I've got to clean you up and make you me.
Hallelujah. You're going to look like me.
Then I'll send you. We heard that today.
Yeah.
People want to know, well, you know, when am I going to get my ministry? Well, maybe Yahweh wants to work some meekness into us.
Clean it up.
If you can't minister to all Israel, how are you going to gather all Israel?
Baruch Hashem Yahweh.
If you can't minister to all Israel, how are you going to be a candidate to gather all Israel? What happens if in that net some folks come in that you don't particularly care for the way they look? Or they didn't grow up next to you in school?
That's right.
They didn't look like those folks. So Miriam became leprous. Why not Aaron? Aharon. Apparently, he got the message just by seeing Miriam. Yahweh was in essence saying, do you think being white is still a sign of chosenness? Isn't that in essence what is happening here? How do you feel about it now?
You what?
I shouldn't feel positive or negative. I have dark skin. I have dark skin. I have a yellow skin. I have yellow skin. There shouldn't be a point of feeling positive or negative. It shouldn't be something positive or negative. It should be something neutral. That's just the way Yahweh made me. And He made them different. They're equally different to me. They're different but equal.
Yes.
So Yahweh says, I don't know where this goes on, but I'll tell you what, it's not going to go on in renewed covenant in Israel.
Hallelujah.
And let's continue. Miriam became leprous, white as Sheleg. And Aharon just looked at Miriam, got spooked, and see, she was leprous. And notice Aharon's reaction, verse 11. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. Ted, notice this.
Sister
Aharon, you get the picture? He said and ran at the same time.
Yeah.
Aharon said to Moshe, pardon me, my master Moshe, my Adon, my Lord, my master, my Moshe. Oh, pardon me, Moshe. Oh, you're my rabbi, Moshe. Yeah, you're my rabbi. I may be a Kohen Hagadol, but if what happened to Miriam is going to happen to me, I think I get the message. I don't need to be white to be high priest.
I heard the message.
I don't need to be white to be high priest. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. And we have the same thing in the Messianic Jewish movement today. When a person of color becomes a rabbi, what's the first thing in Messianic Judaism? Are they Jewish? How can they be Jewish? They're not a person, they're not white,
Can you do that?
so they're not Jewish, because we know all white folks are Jewish, right? No, wrong. So then how can that person be a rabbi? We get that all the time, believe me. That's why we're not in that anymore. Watch this. Aaron said to Moshe, he started thinking about his job as Kohen Hagadol. And he says, oh, my master, now, master. Before he was a false prophet, he was no good, he was unreliable, he didn't think, Yahweh speaks to everybody, he's nobody special just because he's the leader.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden he's starting to rethink this thing.
Yeah. Apologize.
And he says, in today's Torah Parsha, he says, I beg you,
Yeah.
lay not this sin. Obviously it led to leprosy. Lay not this sin upon us, in which we have done foolishly, in which we have sinned. So that racial bigotry is not a mistake, it's not social upbringing, it's not conditioning, it's not the way you were taught. It is sin, it is stinking sin, it is rebellious sin. It will destroy you in your faithfulness to the entire Bayit.
Come on.
You may have a little niche for yourself, but you're going to limit yourself. Yahweh says, you shall not limit the Holy One of Israel.
Hello.
You know why they're beckoning this ministry and Pearl's ministry to go to Africa, to go to the Philippines? They're beckoning, they're calling us, they're inviting us. You know those stories.
To India.
Because some people won't go over there.
Yeah.
And if they do, it's with the Sunday pagan mentality. The white folks are coming to change your religion. We're going to take you from tribal barbarians and turn you into white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, and you'll be happy. And P.S., if you behave, we'll allow you to be a Lutheran.
Carrying cross carriers.
Yes.
What do you think caused all those problems with the Native Americans? It's not that they rejected our Yeshua, they rejected what we tried to do to them after they accepted Yeshua.
Right.
Why couldn't they keep their culture and their heritage and love Yeshua? Why did we have to impose our culture and heritage on them?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Baruch Hashem Yahweh.
Baruch Hashem Yahweh.
So Aaron goes, okay, I'm white, but I don't want to be that white. Let her not be as one dead. This being Caucasian is getting us in trouble. It's better, see that meekness starting to come in now? It's better to be Ethiopian and alive than be a white boy and be dead. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You think they're getting the message here?
Yeah.
Do you think Aaron and Miriam are picking up on this?
Oh, yeah. Real quick.
Real quick. Oh, my master, I beg you, Lena. He sees it for what it is. Now he sees it not as the fact that doesn't Yahweh speak to other folks? He sees it for the sin that it is. He says, please let not this, the wages of sin is death. You want to hate folks that are of a different skin color? You want to practice bigotry? No problem. Get ready to die. Either you're going to die physically, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, or you'll burn from hatred and anger within. You'll burn yourself out. And not only you'll burn yourself out, you'll be useless in the kingdom. Well, how can we claim to minister to all of returning Israel when there's a certain segment of returning Israel that we don't really care for?
Yeah.
And don't tell me that some of us are not bigoted. You are bigoted, and it's part of your renewal process in the kingdom.
Right.
Because when you were a little boy, the blacks did this to you. When you were a little boy, the Jews did that to you. When you were a little boy, the Chicanos did that to you. And you're 50 years later, and you can't get over it. So now you're going to mistreat and be scared or be shy or be distrusting of everybody from that race. That needs attention.
Yeah.
That needs attention. Yahweh will fix it. He'll fix it. If you're willing to meet with him on his terms. No negotiating, no excuses. You come to the meeting and Yahweh says, I'm here to bring judgment. And you say, no, Father, have mercy on me. I've sinned. It is wrong to have variance against other races, especially in renewed covenant Israel. Especially.
Yeah.
We of all people. We of all people. We want Jewish Israel to accept us as returning Ephraim, but if returning Ephraim comes in a color that we didn't know they came in, we get defensive and we get all, fidgety. I know I'm talking to some folks today. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. Let her not be as a dead woman. The wages of sin is death, of whom the flesh is half consumed.